Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello and welcome back to Business Today. Viewers, today's topic is something which again is a very important part of our future. It's about the business of education. Now, education isn't something that we can take lightly, because it is really, really important that we provide the best of education to our children, who are the future. And today, with our two special guests we have, they're in that business. It's not just the business side that everyone is really excited about. It's more importantly what they are delivering and how they do it. This is what we will find out. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my guest, Mr. Mushfiqur Rahman, to my left, and to my far left, Mr. Zilu Miah Shuel. Welcome to the show. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, the first question I'm going to ask you is, obviously, please introduce yourself so our viewers get to know who you are. So could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name's Mushfiq. I live in Birmingham and I run with my partner Sohail Alethea Academy Group, a set of tuition centres, supplemental and additional to what children study at school.
Okay. And
my name is Zilu Miah, Sohail. A lot of people know me as Hyder, and we both run a tuition centre, several tuition centres in Birmingham. We're part of the Alethea Academy Group, and we have got, currently we got 3 centres at the moment. 3 centres,
okay. Yeah. I'll come into that. I want to know how you expanded into that as well. Now, one of the questions I want to ask you is, I know we get many different types of business owners in Business Today show here. This is the first time we've had somebody who's got tuition centres. Now, what made you go into this tuition centre? Can I ask you that question first?
Yes. So both myself and Sohail, we're both graduates in this country. So we both went to university, and we settled in Birmingham. Sohail's actually from Birmingham. Had kids. Now in Birmingham we have a two-tier educational system, so to speak. We've got the state education, and we've got what's called the grammar school education system. And as it is, grammar schools tend to have a better ethos in the schools. It seems to be.
Yeah.
And so we were both very interested in getting our children into the grammar school system. There's a lot of benefits and advantages in those schools,
of course,
relative to what's in the state schools. And so both of us, obviously there's a training, coaching pathway in order to prepare for the grammar school exams.
Okay.
And for myself, I tried various people and various organisations and various companies and wasn't satisfied. So then me and my wife, both coming from educational backgrounds, we decided to coach our own children.
Okay.
And our first child, our son, we managed to get into grammar school.
Mashallah.
And in fact, they got into a school called King Edward School.
That's quite a well-known grammar school in Birmingham.
Well known. There's the state grammar, and then there's the private grammar. And my son got into the private grammar with a scholarship, so we didn't have to pay for that. On the back of that, other friends and family thought, wow, how did you get your son in? And then my daughter got in 3 years later. And over those years, more and more of our friends and families, children wanted to get in, and they asked, and I said, well, there's this, but I also tried, and I got my child.
So you're giving them guidance as
well. Yeah. And then it moved from guiding them to actually coaching them.
Okay.
And so it just developed from that, and then it was the same for Sohail. Yeah.
Would you like to add something?
I was going through the same process, really, and our children are pretty much the same age. And both my 2 sons got into Handsworth Grammar School in Birmingham. So again, we were to-ing and fro-ing trying to find out how to do that. And again, the same process. I was not satisfied with what was out there to provide, so I tutored my own children myself. This is really where Alethea Academy Group was born from, really.
Okay.
So that was something like 10, 11 years ago. And since then, it's obviously now grown into 3 centres now. But that was the beginning of a journey.
Okay. It's all good to say like, okay, I've set up a tuition centre and that was it, I'm sure it wasn't easy as that. I'm sure you've had to go through some sort of difficulties or all sorts of issues in setting up a centre. It's not just easy to set up something, is it? Especially when you're dealing with children and all that. What sort of difficulties did you go through?
If I just give you sort of an experience of it. So we've just mentioned that we coached our own children. So at that point, you're not actually sure whether you're covering the right thing or not. And you you do a bit of research, ask friends and family who may have kids at grammar school, may have gone through the process, research on the internet, look at the resources that are available, and then you figure things out, and then you formulate a curriculum. You use it on your children and you realise they've got in. So this is back in 2010. Okay. So it's been 10 years now.
10 years now.
And over the years, it's difficult to start with because you're building not just a company, but you're building a reputation.
Of course.
And the more the kids get in, the better your reputation is. So it starts off slow, which are the hard times, and you try and keep your focus. You try and keep your ideals, and just say, right, this is working. Children are getting in. It's only a matter of time. The children will advertise you automatically. And you have to have a bit of patience at the beginning, at the start of any business. Because if you falter at that point and you have doubt, then it's going to be very difficult to take it further. So you have to have that patience, that focus and that desire. And that was how it felt like in the first 2 or 3 years. Then suddenly, because we'd got 40, 50, 60 kids into grammar schools, and they were in all the various grammar schools.
Self-marketing, wasn't it? Reputation and
so
word of mouth.
It just got, and we were known to be one of probably 2 or 3 11 plus, what we call 11 plus tuition centres, and it just grew from there. And so we hired places. So the business model was reputation was our marketing strategy. Where we centred ourselves depended on the demand, so different towns. So we'd hire places, and then when we got to a critical mass, where we couldn't really cater in those individual places, we moved to a central place.
Anything to add to that?
Yeah, so we then moved into a central place, like Mushfiq was saying, and the main reason for that was safeguarding issues, because having a place where we were tutoring was mainly community centres, where the toilets were far away. You had to take the kids to the toilet because it's a public building. So we needed our own building, and this is where we changed our way of looking after these kids, and we had our own centre then. And so we created that we started on the process of that towards the end of 2016, and we opened our first centre in April of 2017.
Okay.
So in terms of our own centre, so that happened in April 2000. So really the journey hasn't been 3 years in effect in terms of opening our own centre. Before that we were in public buildings.
Okay. One thing I must say, thank you very much for that, Mr. Zulu. One thing I want to add to it is I've known, I'm from Birmingham, so I've known about your centre through word of mouth as well. And obviously that's how we got to know each other, and I got to invite you. And I've got relatives who send their children to your tuition centre. I can vouch for you in that sense, but obviously we won't be doing that here on a live show. But I can assure you, your system has been put in place quite nicely, and this is what I want to find out a bit more. And now I understand you've got 3 centres. Each centre, how many students do you roughly have?
So roughly in our whole green centre, which is in Birmingham, that has over 250 students.
Wow, over 250 students.
And then we recently, in August, we opened our Tyseley centre, which is about a mile down from Whole Green, and that is currently over 50 kids at the moment. And growing. And the third centre, which is recently, as in just less than a week ago, we opened, that already has 35 children waiting and growing on a daily basis, really.
Wow, that's a big number there. That's increasing 250 in one centre. How do you actually structure these? I mean, these 250 students don't come together, I understand, you know, they come in different days of the week and everything.
Yeah.
How are you able to manage that? Is that, I mean, that probably is a big part of running the business, isn't it?
So we're both from a school background, so I'm a qualified teacher and Sohail's a school business manager.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so we've had experience in schools. So I've been involved in teaching and support in schools. I've looked after the IT facilities of a technology college. So we know how schools are run, and our tuition centre and our tuition centre group is very different to what you may experience in Birmingham, in that we try to run our centres as mini schools. That's our experience, that's our qualification. And so we mimic how the school system works to a smaller site or smaller sites. And the benefit of that is that the kids are familiar with it, so it's nothing different to them. As soon as they come into school, into tuition centre, they know they have to sign in, they know they have to sit down, they know have to get the pens and pencils out, they know who's going to teach them and what subjects they're going to study. The benefit for us is that we know what the curriculum is. Everything's prepared before they turn up. We know what subjects they're studying, what boards they're doing, what levels they're at. So we prepare their work for them.
So you're up to date with the education system.
So we're not doing something that's unfamiliar to the kids. We're not doing something that's not connected to the national curriculum. Everything is familiar in that sense. So, you know, this is why we run it the way we do. So it's not something that's like an alternative educational system. It's national curriculum, but taught in small group with highly enthusiastic tutors. National curriculum, but more focused on giving the kids more time. The kids drive the lessons, for example. So in schools, a teacher will most likely be teaching 30 children, and the teacher will have in their lesson planning the way they're going to deliver it and what they're going to deliver. And within a 45-minute lesson, all parents will know this, all kids will know this, there's very little time for any interaction between the student and the teacher. Few seconds.
Yeah.
If a student has a question, possibly the teacher will answer it. If the teacher's not in one of their lines of thinking, probably not. Whereas in a tuition-based environment, 4 or 5 kids, when a child doesn't understand something, they can stop the lesson and say, "Sir, miss, I don't understand this. Can you explain it again, please?" Because that's what a supplemental education system that we have, tuition centres, are there for.
Yeah, so you mentioned 4 or 5 kids. How many per
So the maximum number per teacher is 5. So the entire setup is like that. We cannot go beyond that 5 because we set up, our tables arranged in such a way that we cannot grow more than 5. And we've always said that, but the most important thing here at our centre is quality of education. And one of the things that most students will realize and most parents will realize that come to our centre is they actually enjoy coming to our centre, and they love learning. And we try our best to do that in different ways.
Okay. One of the thing I wanted to ask you is, you know, we have one-to-one tuitions, you can have private tutors at home, you know, people do that as well. What's the benefit of sending children to a tuition centre as opposed to that? Is there a difference in education?
There is. I mean, coming from an education background and knowing how a classroom is set up, like Mushfiq was saying, there's 30 children on average in a classroom, and the teacher is meant to deliver the lesson. So they may take half the time delivering a lesson, and the other half they are given worksheets or some sort of discussion points where they see to check what they've learned. Yeah. And now for a teacher to go around all 30
Can I just
kids,
stop you there? Sorry about that. We just got the break time that's come up. We're going to continue from there.
No
if you don't
problem.
mind. Okay, viewers, please stay tuned. We're just going to a quick break and we will see you after the break.